Hi, everyone. It is 4 o'clock here in New York. I'm Alicia Menendez in for Nicole Wallace on this President's Day. As we come on the air, the world continues to absorb these shockwaves from the death of Alexei Navalny as tributes pour in around the globe, as the sickening reality sets in that Vladimir Putin has silenced yet another of his critics. The world seemingly stands united in their grief and their outrage at the injustice and the certainty that Navalny would still be alive but for Vladimir Putin. And yet, here at home, there has been one notable exception. The disgraced, twice impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president who stayed conspicuously silent on Navalny's death, who did not utter Navalny's name until today, 3 days after the world first learned that the Russian opposition leader was dead. And still, Trump notably has not condemned Vladimir Putin. No. Instead, in a twisted kind of metaphor, Trump likened himself and his legal battles to the now martyred Alexei Navalny. And it is not just Trump. It is also Trump's allies in the Republican Party who are following Trump's lead, staying strangely muted on their criticisms and condemnations. Here was South Carolina Senator Tim Scott struggling to answer a simple question about why Trump stayed silent on Navalny and Putin for so long.
We need strong leadership coming from America that actually pushes back against Russia and other dictators. Unfortunately, Joe Biden is not up for that charge, and Donald Trump is.
Well, Donald Trump hasn't said a word yet about the death of Navalny or about Putin's culpability. Do you want Trump to say something, and why do you think he hasn't yet?
Well, Jake, I think a better question really is, let's look at the middle. Let's look at the middle of the challenges that we face today across the globe. The middle of the challenge, you see front and center, is the failure of Joe Biden.
That is more than head-scratching. That is something much more insidious. It is something that did not go unnoticed by former Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
When you think about Donald Trump, for example, pledging retribution, what Vladimir Putin did to Navalny is what retribution looks like in a country where the leader is not subject to the rule of law. And I think that we have to take Donald Trump very seriously. We have to take seriously the extent to which, you've now got a Putin wing of the Republican Party. I believe the issue this election cycle is making sure the Putin wing of the Republican Party does not take over the West Wing of the White House.
And that is where we start today with former Congressman from Florida, MSNBC political analyst David Jolly, and former U.S. Senator and co-host of MSNBC's How to Win 2024 podcast, Claire McCaskill. Claire, just how dangerous is that, a Putin wing of the Republican Party?
Yeah, it's really scary. And I think what is more scary is if you look at what Navalny did, he returned to Russia knowing that Putin was going to come after him. That's called principled courage. That's called having the courage of caring about something more than yourself. Then let's compare and contrast that to these ridiculous substitutes for real senators in the United States Senate right now. You've got Lindsey Graham, who has been one of the biggest hawks vis-a-vis Putin. He knows he's a thug. He knows Putin kills his enemies. He knows that Putin is everything that America is not. But yet, because he's trying out for vice president, he and Tim Scott go along and vote against aid to Ukraine and go on TV and try to make excuses for clearly Donald Trump's effort to remain best friends with one of them, should be considered one of the most dangerous leaders in the whole world to the cause of freedom. And it is the opposite of what Navalny was. There's no courage there. It is only a false fealty to Donald Trump because these guys all want to be vice president.
Well, David Jolly, to Claire's point, it wasn't just Tim Scott, though I got to say, Tim Scott's sort of sidestepping there was truly a remarkable type of Mad Libs that I have never seen before. I want you, though, to listen to Congressman Mike Turner. This is him being asked about Trump's comments on NATO.
Former President Trump recently said he would encourage Russia to invade NATO countries who he says haven't paid their bills. You have endorsed him. Are you comfortable with him saying that, Chairman?
Well, this is what I know. When Donald Trump was president, he actually increased funding to NATO itself.
The words that he said this week, he said, I would encourage them, Russia, to do whatever the heck they wanted. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. Are you comfortable with that?
This is what I know. Donald Trump's political rallies don't really translate into Donald Trump's actual policies.
Except the problem is, David, often they do.
Yeah, Alicia, because the leader has followers. And I think there's a unique shamefulness to see Mike Turner, Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham, and others engage in this type of apologism, if you will, for their own political interest, to faceplant on the knee of Donald Trump. They do it very well, from Graham to Scott to Mike Turner to Lee Stefanik, name them. There's a unique shamefulness to it. I think what we also can't overlook, though, and this is a little bit in what we see from Mike Turner there, is the orthodoxy of the Republican Party has shifted over the decades. I don't believe the Republican Party today sees Russia as an adversary. I don't believe they see Vladimir Putin as uniquely evil. And that is a pivot from GOP orthodoxy. And I think what is so fascinating about that, as concerning as it is, sure, there are national security interests for the U.S. and the West to no longer see Donald Trump as an adversary, or see Vladimir Putin as an adversary, if Republicans take control or if Donald Trump ends up in the White House. The flip side of that coin is the embrace of American weakness. If you think about the challenge between the United States and Russia and the fall of the Soviet Union over the decades, it was about the strength of America and the contest of ideas to protect individual liberty, to defend democracy, to protect a republic. We championed that on the world stage, and that is why the contest was so strong and Russia was seen as an adversary. Today's Republican Party has embraced American weakness. They are okay looking the other way and giving equity to Vladimir Putin and Russia. And that's not just a pivot of orthodoxy. That's a new chapter of republicanism, this chapter of American weakness that they are willing to run on. Hopefully voters do see a distinction there.
Help me understand, though, David, do you think of that embrace of that pivot as being just about Donald Trump, or are there different origins that I'm not seeing?
Oh, I think it's the echo chamber. You can look at the Tucker Carlson interview and realize that so many, call them conservatives, MAGAs, whatever they are, receive that word from Tucker Carlson as though that really matters. And then you see the likes of House Republicans who are unwilling to legislate in the face of the threat. And so that's why the affirmation of the change of orthodoxy and the embrace of weakness is right in front of us. I think we've been duped into thinking this will all work out. Somehow the House will pass the aid package. Well, if they do, they will do it with a majority of Democratic votes, and they will do it with Republicans getting pulled across finish line. We should accept where they are today as their position on Russia, which is they are okay with Russia invading Ukraine. They are okay with a strengthening hand of Vladimir Putin, and they are okay with American weakness. That is today's Republican Party, and that is their orthodoxy. It is not just about fealty to Donald Trump. It's actually a pivot from where the party's been for decades.
Well, Claire, I want to play for you something that Secretary Hillary Clinton had to say over the weekend at the Munich Security Conference, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
The obvious point to make about Donald Trump is take him literally and seriously. He means what he says. People did not take him literally and seriously in 2016. Now he is telling us what he intends to do. And people who try to wish it away, brush it away, are living in an alternative reality. He will do everything he can to become an absolute authoritarian leader if given the opportunity to do so.
It's almost a perfect retort to that sound I played you earlier from Representative Turner, right, Claire? I want you to both talk about this concept that we have to take him both literally and seriously, and talk about how that then might apply to a wing of the Republican Party who, as David just said, this is now their orthodoxy. This is their belief as well.
Yeah, and I think, all we have to do is think back to Helsinki, that critical moment when Donald Trump came on the stage with Putin and basically told America, I believe this murderous thug who will kill anyone who disagrees with him more than I believe my own intelligence officials, who, by the way, are mostly veterans of our armed services, of our military. So he took the word of this guy against his own people. At that moment, something shifted. Like David said, something shifted in the orthodoxy of the presidency as it relates to Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Now, the other thing to remember here is his first term, he did surround himself with people who told him things he couldn't do. I know many of them. I know many of them told him that was a huge mistake he made in Helsinki, and he should not have done that. Bolton was there, and Kelly was there, and Mattis was there, and Milley was there, and you had Barr at the end, finally, walking away when Trump refused to accept that what he was doing was illegal and fraudulent in relation to the election. But he's not going to do this next time. He's going to surround himself with the Navarros and the Millers and all of the ones who are perfectly happy being his stooge. He will not take any guardrails this next time. So Hillary Clinton is, not surprisingly, 100% correct. We should take him at his word. He will probably do everything he can, including walking away from NATO.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
Sir, come on, when is it not, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I'll assume that we're good on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security, please bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name?
Evac, sir.
Evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark aircraft. General! General! We need to evac immediately. Evac.